Hey, Anand, thank you so much for coming on Startup Share today and talking to us about Zycara. I'm really interested in learning about all of the interesting features you're adding to the accounting process. I'm a little bit of an accounting nerd, and I love talking about accounts receivables and things like that. So we're really going to have fun getting into that story. But before we do, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you sort of got started in this journey.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dhaval, for having me, first of all. My story really began at birth. My father actually moved to the U.S. Uh, about a year, 6 months before I was born. Kind of came with no network, no plan, so to speak. Brought my mom over. They settled on Los Angeles. You know, my mom is actually resistant to the cold temperature, so we landed in sunny California. From there, my father was kind of looking at different businesses. We had an entrepreneurial background, with my grandfather, who's in the construction space in, pre-partition India.
Wow.
Had to
Okay.
kind of start over in Bombay in the very early days, one of the first developers in Bombay back in the day. And, anyway, that carried through, with my father. He wound up landing in the wholesale luxury goods business, specifically watches, importing Swiss watches from Switzerland, and identified good arbitrage with selling to the jewelry districts in downtown Los Angeles, and then expanding nationally from there. For a period of time, we had Costco as a premier client, various wholesale chains, and that business went very well. But my experience with the company was very interesting. Apparently my first word was Seiko watches, because in the early days we were importing a lot of watches, and I was, crawling in our, at that time, one bedroom. And so from there, I had basically my, early childcare was actually in the office. So I was exposed to a lot of my father's conversations with different suppliers and customers. I was actually working with my mother. She was in charge of the finances as it went. So I was helping her with kind of accounting and kind of dealing with receivables at age probably like 5 onwards. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's definitely, the subject is very dear to me
So
and
you
close.
learned accounting before you learned how to count.
Basically, yeah. Kind of bizarre in that sense, but it was definitely a valuable experience for me as I, grew and developed. That business was very successful. It made us, it gave us a good opportunity in the US. My father actually, again, like I said, didn't really have a direction until he landed into the watch business. So from there, I'll transition kind of into education. I attended USC. That's where had a lot of great experiences, of course. I also met and forged great relationships with my existing co-founder in the sense of that's where we really began working together. Ravi Sharma was a previous guest of yours,
Yep.
and he and I worked together at the Indian Association of USC, SCIA at the time as social chairs together. So we
Nice.
kind of developed a bond and a working relationship. From there, I actually became president of that association the following year. And after USC, I had a brief stint with Smith Barney, which was later acquired by Morgan Stanley.
Hmm.
From there, and this is now we're crossing 2008, 2009. My father's health wasn't doing too good. So I kind of took a step back, started helping him with some real estate investments that he had made as he retired from the watch business. So we worked together, had some development and investing opportunities in India throughout, Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai. And that's where, I spent a lot of time there kind of learning the ropes of a different way of doing business. As I'm sure you know,
Yep.
business in India is very different from business in the US, with a lot of non-traditional standards when it comes to execution of things.
Hmm.
That was that accelerated my growth, so to speak, as an entrepreneur. I think when you have experiences like that, it definitely kind of drives you in a different direction of looking at things.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that was really kind of the early days. From there, when I came back, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do next. You know, investments were deployed. We were comfortable financially, but I took a liking to financial services. And so I jumped into working with a couple Fortune 100 companies, New York Life, Mass Mutual. Got to work with small business owners in a different capacity, you know, in terms of managing their finances and getting them secured for their future, because, you know, it's very important for me in our experience as a family. So that was a great learning curve in terms of getting to know the challenges of other businesses and what they face from a financial standpoint. I then kind of broadened out, expanded with a partner working in an independent firm for another couple of years. Again, you know, same setup, but a little bit more hands-on. You know, when you're not under the hood of a Fortune 100 company, you have a lot more freedom to kind of market yourself and expand. So that was, you know, kind of the setup for me. At the end of 2019, I was kind of reevaluating my position in life and what I wanted to do for the next, you know, 10 years, so to speak. And so that's when I had a conversation with Ravi, like I mentioned earlier, and his father. Inder is a serial entrepreneur who I've, you know, had a relationship with. For the previous couple of years, he kind of wanted to, you know, share with me different business ideas, and, you know, we talked about them. But it wasn't until the end of 2019 where we sat down, had a conversation, and that's where he kind of shared with me his vision for my company now, Zycara. You know, we touched on our mutual experiences of dealing with poor customer behavior, in the sense of, you know, invariably every small business owner has a customer to quite frequently, where they just, you know, didn't pay or pay at all when it comes to invoices and the financial obligations that they had. So for us, you know, and then we looked at the solutions that existed, you know, namely collection agencies and legal services that really, you know, they really take the lifeblood out of a transaction. You know, they end up either on the collection side, taking out, you know, roughly 50% on the back end. And, you know, the legal system, as I'm sure, you know, everyone knows, can be quite resource draining. So, you know, we were kind of just talking about Zycara. I'll kind of leave it at that until we kind of get into it in more
absolutely.
detail. But that's really my journey with Zycara. I started March of last year, right when the pandemic hit, which was quite an experience on multiple fronts. And really, I think, set the stage for how I intended to lead the company and my vision for it moving forward.
Fantastic. I love your background in sort of understanding, having a really good, deep understanding of accounts receivable and managing that for your small business, because that is really the important thing every small business has to face and has to go through. So you're sort of uniquely positioned in that you developed that understanding very early on.
Yeah, it's kind of fate that I wound up with Zycara. You know, like I couldn't imagine a scenario in life where, you know, most people go through different life experiences, but then they end up landing into a position to actually really take that experience and grow into it with the public markets and do things for others.
Absolutely, and and the fact that you've sort of developed post 2007 2008 crash in the financial industries, you sort of developed that understanding as well. So that's fantastic. So now let's get into Zycara. I understand you sort of joined with a co-founder, and he sort of had this idea, and you sort of are executing on that idea. I really love that that type of a setup. Tell me a little bit about what the initial vision was for the company. You know, we talked about accounts receivable, but how are you different from any other accounts receivable company?
Sure. So I'll kind of touch a little bit of more background there. You know, one of the experiences that Inder had that kind of drove this idea with him, and it's, again, something that I've experienced as well, is he had a customer. He was in the hotel supply space. He had a customer who started several chains of hotels, small hotels. Ended up buying X amount of goods from him. Relationship went decent, I'm sure, in the early days. And then there was a period where he was expanding, so his order size went up, and he bought a lot of goods from him. Of course, credit is very normal when you're dealing with supply and wholesale. And so he, took that, and then that same customer ended up apparently acquiring various other goods for this hotel setup from different suppliers. So there was like now a network of vendors who had offered credit to this one customer, and that customer ended up just choosing not to pay these people in their included. And so that's where, the idea of promoting accountability between businesses kind of came into this perspective. And then I've, of course, expanded on that more recently. But that's really where it all started, is that kind of experience of dealing with non-paying customers. So while there are the traditional solutions that I mentioned earlier with collection services and legal services, and now, of course, there are platforms that are kind of digitizing the collection process when it comes to communicating with customers, there's still no accountability measure, so to speak, between businesses. So that's where we came up with the idea of enabling businesses to publish defaulting or delinquent customers so that the entire ecosystem remains healthy, right? So now you cannot be a customer and just start buying goods from 10 different suppliers without now having to face public accountability. And then now your potential future vendors will now see this behavior because it's been published in a verified format. So that's really the core essence of the early days of Zycara, was accounting for the bad debt that comes from those kind of relationships.
Right.
And really, again, late payments is something that's the precursor to that, but bad debt was the really early focus. Publishing companies who are not paying. But we also wanted to give a platform for them to initiate a conversation, right? So really the idea was a business would upload their invoices that were delinquent already, give the customer an opportunity to make good and make the payment. And if not, then provide an outlet for publication. And when I jumped on, that was, very fascinating to me, leveraging in today's digital world, reputation management. Today we have the applications are in the sense of more B2C, consumer focused, where you have the Better Business Bureau, you have Yelp, Google Reviews, Trustpilot. Those platforms are designed to give consumers outlets for communicating complaints. But what they don't do is help drive the bottom line, which is collecting an invoice. So what we've done is taken that reputation management approach of publication in a way, and applied that to invoicing and putting a little bit more public pressure on businesses to make payments on time rather than, kind of taking it easy, so to speak.
Right.
And, the kind of legacy challenges of small business. And then from there, in March last year when I jumped on, I had a lot of communication within my network of business owners, having worked with them for 3 decades actually.
Right.
I can't believe I'm turning 36 next month. Yeah, so from there, I realized that the problem is not necessarily just getting business owners to pay on time. It's more of a lack of visibility into the real-time finances of your customer. That's where we came up with adding on a scoring mechanism, a real-time scoring mechanism that will take the invoices that we have in our platform and provide a real-time update on the due date of an invoice, 15 days, 30 days, different scales, so that a vendor can then see where this business stands in terms of their financial health in real time.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so that's a component that I'm kind of most eager about. And then, the other aspect that causes a lot of drop-off in on-time payments is poor communication, timely communication every month. I remember, when my father at the end of every month would have to make his calls to customers, say, invoices due, where's my
Yep.
money kind of thing. And so what we've done is kind of generated automation on that front, provided timely communication, so that takes that responsibility, most of that responsibility off the business owner's hands, so that we provide that type of communication that's appropriate at the right time points.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love this idea of sort of starting, addressing the bad debt issue for small businesses. I think is very important. And like you said, the traditional players, the business can recover essentially pennies on the dollar, right? Because the fees are so high, and then if you do have to go down the legal process again, it's extremely inconvenient to say the least.
Put it lightly.
But so I love this idea. The real-time scoring essentially it takes the focus not just from bad debt, but to all sort of accounts receivable, right?
Right.
So talk to us about that transition. That you started with the focus on the bad debts, but now you're sort of expanding that focus. What was the thinking behind that, and what was that decision like?
Sure. So again, the bad debt side of things, so just to give you a little bit more background there, statistically from studies by Sage Group and other, accounting firms, roughly 12% of invoices are paid late in the US. Out of that, another, 10% end up as bad debt. So, looking at that, I was considering, that's 1%, so to speak, of all invoices. But for us to kind of grow into a large, scalable, huge mega opportunity, for myself and the team, I thought we should expand into a complete cycle, right? Because it's not just about bad debt. Like I said, there are billing and automation challenges, there are credit risk data challenges. And so when it came to that aspect specifically, we looked at the existing players. You have Dun & Bradstreet, Experian, and similar. I know, those are the two big ones when it comes to small business credit reporting. And these are the same tools that collection agencies use to put pressure on the collection calls. They say, if you don't pay, we'll report you to these bureaus. Now, the challenge with these bureaus is they get their information theoretically 9 to 12 months, sometimes 6 months after an invoice is delinquent, right? And so that goes back to the original problem that I mentioned is if I'm doing business with a new customer, I don't know what's happened with them, until if it was reported even, 6, 9, 12 months ago. So that creates a host of challenges. And so what we thought was, since we are a platform that's bringing on invoices and helping, automate the payment cycle, why not take that visibility of the invoices within our platform and apply it and make it more real time? So that's how we're kind of distinguishing from those legacy players is, look, there's data that, you can pay $1,500 for a report on Dun & Bradstreet for one client. Maybe it's useful. Most likely, if you're a small business, it's not. And so for us, we thought that cost, the pricing of that, it was just prohibitively expensive if you're a small business owner. And then the second aspect is, again, the fact that even if it's reported, which is, again, not maybe 20% of the time, from what, the statistics I've gathered, that you really don't know who you're dealing with, besides maybe reference checks, which, again, can be manipulated and the like. So we wanted to provide real accountability for businesses and real data that I can make as a small business owner an informed decision. Right.
No, that's fantastic. And I love this idea of, holding people accountable for the decisions they make as soon as they make them. So, even if they're delaying on the payment within the time frame, right?
Yeah. And one thing, Dhaval, that I want to add is we're not taking this, publication aspect to be punitive. We, when we do give a business an opportunity to make good, rectify the situation, and we also focus on the other side of the coin. We also, part of our scoring mechanism, the algorithm that we're developing is to reward good customer behavior. So we're also taking the good side where if a business pays on time or if they pay early, that actually boosts the credit rating that we have in our system. So, we're not trying to be punitive. We're promoting accountability in the truest sense, not from a negative point of view, but from a kind of an ethics point of view.
Right. Fantastic. So you joined the company. You mentioned that right at March 2020, right as we were going into the pandemic. What was the pandemic period like? So the last 12 months, essentially. Obviously, it's hard to go to market during that time, but you're also developing the product in that time. So tell me sort of what you sort of accomplished in those last 12 months.
Sure. So, when the pandemic hit, that obviously separated our team. We quickly adapted to remote work. It wasn't a problem. For us, it was more about how are we going to reach, because a lot of business owners were shutting down, businesses was closed. It was a challenge of continuing that customer discovery process while the product was being worked on in parallel. So in the early days between March and June, it was a little challenging trying to get a hold of certain customers or relationships. And then a lot of the conversations were, well, we're in quite a jam right now. Like I can't even think about anything else. So those challenges weren't too bad for us because like I said, we're really trying to help businesses on this problem that they were facing at the time, which was payment and receivables. So it just gave me an opportunity to really dig in and have more meaningful conversations with those business owners. And then from there, internally, we were developing out, our marketing strategies, language. So for us, it's really important that communication is appropriate. We're dealing with financial matters, invoicing, customer relationships. One of the biggest reasons why businesses don't report each other traditionally is fear of losing that relationship. And so for us, it's developing the tone, the content, and the context so that we can convey what we're trying to. It's really a new approach, right, when it comes to receivables. So really building out that process and framing it all appropriately on the sales and marketing front. For me, it was a lot of a perfect opportunity to build relationships with strategic partners and alliances and just building out that network mostly while product was still being worked on at that time. So, for example, I reached out to Biz to Credit, try to dig in more on credit financing for small business, spoke to several collection agencies along the way. I can probably touch on that a little bit more later, but the opportunity for us is not to necessarily replace collection agencies, but to be a precursor to them because they do have a role. They're not going to go away anytime soon. But the challenges with them, again, are their human capital costs that, again, make their pricing structure so expensive on the back end. And so what we're thinking is that gave me a lot of opportunity to kind of think about, the entire landscape and figure out how we can plug where we fit in that cycle. And so, for the last 12 months, it was mostly more market research, refining our product, having conversations with different customers, talking to stakeholders, investors. So we were also, I was actively fundraising. I'll give a shameless plug for the Startup Steroid in a bit, but, again, there was a lot of opportunity for me to have just more meaningful conversations at scale because of technology, right? With Zoom and everyone being comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So it was really turning that kind of period of isolation, in a sense, into actually more engagement for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I know you've accomplished a lot. We spoke a little bit beforehand, and now you essentially have a product that's almost ready to go.
Yes.
Remind me again, when are you launching this?
So we're actually launching mid-March. So
mid-March, okay.
In approximately 10 days.
Perfect, beautiful. So that's exciting, and the fact that all the other pieces are coming together is fantastic. So now, once you have the product in the market, what's the next step? What are your next 12 months look like? What are you planning to sort of really get the word out there?
Sure. So, I could touch on several aspects of that. Again, a lot of the 12 months since product development was going on gave me a lot of background information, a lot of things to put together. Now for us, for the next 12 months is really putting our product in the hands of customers, of business owners, and really seeing what sticks as far as our entire thesis, right? Like it's still a thesis at this point. Sure, we've had a lot of customer discovery calls, but until we get it in the hands of users, there's still certain aspects that we want to see if we can enhance and make better. So for the next, I would say 60 days, it's really getting our product in the hands of the pipeline that we have. We're currently on our website and landing pages and marketing, generating a wait list for our launch, right? So
you already have a wait list. You already have people who are ready to use the product.
Yes. So that's
fantastic.
What we're developing, mostly at the start of 2021, is that wait list. And from there, again, having those conversations, a lot more, customer discovery when it comes to the product side of things now, more rather than the theoretical side. Again, the channel partners is another aspect that's really important for us. So one of the most common questions I get is, okay, you're developing this publication platform to report delinquent pairs, but who's going to care in day one, right? I mean, every network has that chicken and egg problem at the beginning when it comes to how do you get people to use it, visibility, all the like. So one of the strategies that I thought through was, one of the key channel partners for us is industry associations, right? So you have your hotel suppliers association, your auto parts association, your jewelers association, all different industries have a kind of a governing body, so to speak, that is designed to promote a healthy ecosystem, right? So that aligns with our vision and our mission to create accountability and transparency in a healthy ecosystem. So for us, for me specifically, it's aggressively pursuing a lot of the conversations I had, being able to now demo the product with them in an appropriate way. And the value proposition there, Double, is like twofold. One is, of course, we can provide some valuable information to them, right? If I'm the Jewelers Association of California and I get a monthly list of delinquent pairs, that's something that I can then convey to my constituents as an industry, help my membership renewal and retention in a way. So, it's just working out logistics for that. And then to complement that, we also have a kind of a robust referral system that we've developed. So employing that with them so that they can plug Zycara, we can then also plug them as partners and create, again, that sense of accountability through industry peer, not peer pressure, but industry peer recognition. Peer pressure is more of a high schooler, but so that's really one of the key channel partners. The other key channel partner that I'm going to be aggressively pursuing are CPAs. CPAs are trusted advisors when it comes to the finances of small business owners. And so there's a natural fit there to then, again, plug a kind of referral opportunity, as well as giving them a way to convey to their customers that are their customers that, we're working with companies that are promoting their financial health. And so, we're trying to develop win-win scenarios for us, our channel partners. And then the last piece is, our publication list is theoretically a natural lead generation for collection agencies, right? Because here's an invoice that's been deemed delinquent by the business owner themselves. One of the challenges is figuring out, when do I turn to a collection agency, or when do I kind of decide to pursue more aggressive steps? So for us, we have a natural process within our platform that kind of helps them identify that. And so, when an invoice ideally gets paid, but if it doesn't, and the publication does happen, we don't want the story to just end there. So while they can still collect on that published invoice, their customer can have that removed or marked settled in our publication. So that's, of course, the low cost approach. But if they do want, to take anything they can from a third party source, we then have relationships with collection agencies to say, hey, here's a database of pre-vetted invoices that are natural fit for your process. And so it's kind of, to put it in a way, a frenemy approach, the Apple, Facebook, Google, you have to work together to kind of solve the problems and integrate in a way. and they, again, like I said, they do have a very key purpose for helping.
No, absolutely, and it's a huge value add for your customers also, because
Yes.
it's
That's
sort
another
of the
nightmare,
last
trying to figure
resort,
it
but
out.
it's
Sorry.
available now.
Yeah, that's another nightmare, trying to figure out which collection agent to turn to, how to negotiate with them, deal with that whole
Yep.
process. For us, it's a simple opt-in. We have the invoice already. This is our partner. You can choose from a list. However, it makes sense. And then it just gets handled for you. So again, taking
Right.
out that stress of the receivables process off the hands of the small business owner.
Beautiful, beautiful. So this sounds like an amazing business opportunity, and sounds like you're looking at all the right pieces. What's the grand vision for this? The 3, 5, 10 years out, what do you hope to accomplish? Do you want to be the next sort of Intuit and have a new platform for yourself, or do you see an exit in that time frame?
Yes. So for me, I was weighing a lot of different thoughts on this subject. We are very early in our cycle, so I'm trying to limit my putting my brain
Yeah,
power on that aspect. But of course, every night as an entrepreneur, you go to sleep and start thinking and dreaming of the future. So for me, there are so many pathways we can take this, though. Like, when it comes to the grand vision, I would like us to be the next, supplement or somebody replace, Dun & Bradstreet on the credit data side. They're a public company.
yeah,
Bill.com is another big player. I didn't realize that they're, $15 billion valuation for Bill.com.
right.
So for me, that's kind of like a great target, so to speak, in terms of
Hmm.
what to achieve. And so, we'll weigh our options along the way. For us, we're integrating payments into our platform. So there's an ISV relationship with BlueSnap, so we can facilitate B2B payments. So again, everything should be housed within Zycara, so a business owner doesn't need to plug in any solutions when it comes to, once an invoice is created, once they do the hard work of
Right.
getting a product or a service and contributing it to a customer, we want to take every step after that off their hands. So really the grand vision is to be, a Bill.com, a Dun & Bradstreet, but take it to another level in terms of really making it frictionless and giving business owners like all the tools they need in the platform so that they don't have to kind of scramble to put things together or have any drop-offs along the way. As far as potential acquirers, like I said, on the payment space, you have your PayPal, we have a relationship with BlueSnap, Stripe. There's an opportunity for them to onboard the small business segment, which it's probably the most growing segment right now, or what they're trying to grow the most. And so it has the highest payment volume. So for them, it's a great opportunity to be plugged into a network of small business owners. Again, on the other side of the spectrum, you have Dun & Bradstreet, who are looking to amplify their credit data and have more access to, again, this hard to reach small business demographic.
Right.
And so you have that whole spectrum. And, for me, it's a matter of, and for us as a team, coming to a decision whether we do want to get acquired and reach it to a certain scale and get acquired, or take the company public and, again, be, another big player in that space, another Intuit. There would, of course, also be a potential acquirer as well. So there's endless possibilities on that front because we're addressing the whole spectrum of finance for small business.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, great job in explaining that story to us. Thank you so much for coming on today. By the way, last question, is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't? Any sort of final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Well, there's two things I think I would like to kind of share is, we talked a lot about the financial side of things, the financial struggles. What's really driving me personally is the emotional side of things. And what I mean by that is, growing up every month, seeing at the end of the month when payments are due, the mood of the family dynamic can get influenced by those business challenges, so to speak. And again, because I was exposed to it at such an early age and it stuck with me, and I'm an only child, so for me, I'm far more observant typically, I guess, than your average child in that sense. So for me, it's being able to not only provide that financial comfort for small business owners in terms of taking that receivable process off their hands, but also helping with the emotional side, the family side, and kind of just giving people, business owners, more of their time for themselves and their family.
Right.
But that's really, and then another aspect that ties into that is my entire team from start to finish. Again, I was, kind of plugged into them, right? There was a few of us that were existing prior to me jumping on as CEO. But we've developed such a family bond level that I can't even describe. I've never felt a relationship like that with any other group of people that I've worked with. And so they've been very dedicated. We've dealt with a lot of loss because of COVID the last year, personally, family, as well as other challenges. And, we've really stuck together. So I think, the only other aspect I wanted to share is kind of our commitment and perseverance as a team and as a family. We actually, a lot of our weekly calls, we always call ourselves the Zy family, Zy being Zycara,
right.
family. And so that's how we address each other. And that's something that we also want to bring more of a community sense. There is a vision, again, for that aspect, but I guess, we didn't quite get into it. But it's not just the receivable side. We do want to create a community for small business as well. There's an opportunity to, I don't want to get into something that hasn't been theoretically, fully vetted out, but, an opportunity for businesses to connect in a proper and more appropriate way. You have LinkedIn and the like, but I think we can leverage a lot of matchmaking. Again, I'm right now hyper-focused on the receivable side of things, but there's a lot of opportunity for us to expand.
Absolutely. And this is how our minds work, right? As entrepreneurs, we want to look at all the possibilities. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I have to always rein it in because there's so many things, like I said, that cross my mind on a, unfortunately daily basis, the way I operate mentally. But, I do want to focus purely on value-driven outcomes on the receivable side in the short term and then take it from there. But one thing I did touch on earlier that I didn't actually say was, not to, shameless plug for Startup Steroid is, we are fundraising, and most of that round is now been subscribed. And one of the biggest term sheets I received was from a company that came through Startup Steroid. So just to give you, your platform a little plug there, it was really literally the day I registered. I got an email, and we've been communicating over the last month and currently in heavy due diligence. And so thank you for that.
No problem. And thank you for doing the interview. And I hope that, you're able to close out that round pretty quickly here. And good luck for all of the things you have lined up. I'm really excited for you and excited for what Zycara is going to achieve. So
thank you so much, Tom.
Fantastic. All right, with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you. And we'll continue the conversation as you sort of grow into the company.
Sure. Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Fantastic.